Richie Bradshaw of Locked On Sun Devils. Let's talk Big 12 basketball. At the time of recording, we have not seen Arizona State take on Texas Tech, but you and I both kind of agreed it's probably not going to be the best contest between those two teams. So with the assumption that that game went south for Arizona State, we're looking at a Big 12 that is missing some March Madness members that you would typically expect or could have expected. Houston and Arizona have been red hot. Texas Tech has been a lot better than expected. Iowa State has plateaued a bit. Kansas has plateaued, and then it's utter chaos. BYU, Baylor, Kansas State, West Virginia, even a TCU, all fighting for contention here. We promised you, Richie, when you got to the Big 12, it would be the best conference in college basketball. Do you think this league is living up to that still?
So, you know what's funny, real quick, I want to add with the teams contending, like ASU, not just for me, like a lot of people nationally thought that they were going to contend for getting into the tournament. They brought in 2 5-star kids as freshmen. They had another kid who was a top 50 recruit. They did great with their transfer portal class. It was the 10th year of Bobby Hurley. It's like, okay, maybe this is what they need to finally make the tournament. Obviously, that's not the case, and I don't think you're even NIT at this point. But when I look at this conference, I don't see the depth that I thought we were going to see this year, but there are some really good teams. And like Iowa State caught me off guard. Unfortunately, they're slumping recently, but that's still a really good team. As much as it pains me to say this, Arizona is surging right now, and when they're hot, they're hot. And Caleb Love, think of him what you will. When he's dialed in, he's as difficult a shooter to stop as there is. Houston is great. Texas Tech has been fun. Kansas, not as dominant as I expected them to be. And then just a kind of whatever. But all in all, I'm not disappointed with the Big 12 and the depth that we were told it was going to have. But it does feel like a lot of teams are underachieving this year. And I would include ASU in that underachieving class because of what they were supposed to be.
That is, something we'll definitely get into when we talk about Bobby Hurley possibly being fired later on in the show, because it seems like that could be the crash course that we're headed toward in Tempe. The Big 12 with so many schools in that middle ground. I mentioned Baylor and BYU, where Kansas has fallen down there, Kansas State, West Virginia. They're each in kind of different swings. Kansas down right now. Kansas State, maybe the hottest team in the entire Big 12. Are you surprised by how similar to football, there's just a hodgepodge of like 7 teams in the middle of this conference that all could still either be a 5 seed in March Madness or miss the NIT?
It is really funny, the similarities that we're seeing. And the thing that I appreciate about basketball was, or maybe not so much appreciate, but what stands out, I suppose, is we went into the year having a pretty good idea of who the best teams were going to be. Houston, Arizona, Kansas would be up there. That's pretty much where we're at. You look at football last year, and BYU was supposed to be bad. ASU was picked to finish last. Texas Tech was middle of the pack. Iowa State was on the latter half, and those end up being the better teams. Like, the football was way more unpredictable. We have a better idea with basketball, but it's just such an interesting conference. Like, there's this parity in here that anyone can beat anyone. Like, K-State beats Iowa State in Ames. ASU took Iowa State about 35 minutes, and then the last 5 minutes again just wet the bed, and somehow Iowa State covered a 15-point spread when it was like a 2-point game for 35 minutes. Like, there's these teams that are just able to challenge each other that normally you wouldn't expect to. And for a program that's coming from the Pac-12, where we're used to this, like the disrespect, everyone overlooks, it's sandlot football, it's sports that no one respects. Like, coming to the Big 12 to have something very similar, I wouldn't call it a breath of fresh air, but it's kind of nice for ASU that it's like, okay, yeah, we're kind of used to this. Like, we know how to navigate, we know how to deal with everyone kind of overlooking us and everything, but it's very funny and almost poetic that that's the same situation that we walked into after leaving that situation.
Do you think that there is a a high ceiling and upside somewhere Arizona State can go for the rest of this season that is positive?
I do. I mean, at the end of the day, this roster is just so talented. But the other thing they're running into is injuries. Now, I'm not somebody that likes to use injuries as an excuse. Injuries happen to every team. And at the end of the day, if you're good at recruiting and you're good at building depth and talent, you should be fine. Now, ASU has been ravaged. I mean, Joson Sannon and Jaden Quaintance, who was out against Texas Tech, they've been banged up this year. Those are your 2 5-stars. You've lost a lot of your depth, like Austin Nunez is out for the year. They have lost a lot, and it has definitely contributed to the losses. The only way that ASU is going to find a way to turn this around and make it at least a respectable season is if guys can get healthy. And again, Quaintance is out for Texas Tech. Sannon is starting to look closer to his former self. And some of your other guys have been looking good too, but it's a matter of closing out these games. And for goodness sake, stop forcing the three. There was a game where they shot 33 3-point tries in the first half of the game and we're like 20%. And it's like, this isn't winning basketball. This is why we're losing so many games. So they need to find some health, which isn't in their control, but they need to get back to playing to their strengths. And they're just not doing that.
I wonder if there's a national champion somewhere in here. I hope, but I just don't. It's tough. Houston is the best shot. I think we have Arizona, as much as it might pain Arizona State fans, is also in that category. And Texas Tech is, any given night, could, I think, beat anybody in the country. Iowa State needs to show me, well, what have you given me lately? Kansas, what have you given me lately? You know, BYU, the ebb and flow. Baylor, I'm talking about all these teams that, again, could be, top seeds in the NCAA tournament or could miss it altogether here in a couple of weeks. We'll find out in March. We're getting close. We're inching closer and closer to learning which Big 12 teams can vie for that national championship. And it does seem as though we are on that crash course for Arizona State to not be named in that field unless they win the Big 12 tournament. That's kind of your hope at this point if you're a Sun Devil. Coming up, Bobby Hurley's got to go, right? Wrong? We'll see. This is a Locked On Big 12, Locked On Sun Devils crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show, it's not shocking at all, is it's brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel, when the NBA season is here, is where you have to go. I mean, I have to, if you want to live wager on these games. When the game tips off, the NBA action's just getting started. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. You can live bet throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to be a fourth quarter comeback, or you see one coming, I should say, you can stay in on the action. And if you're looking for bigger payouts, same game parlays are there. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because then I get to stay up to date with every moment in the game. And even if my pregame bet's not going to hit, maybe my in-game bet will. Plus, the app, it's easy to use. And right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.